Thank you very much. Now I would ask all of our presenters from this afternoon to join us at the table here.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay, any questions for our panel?
This is for Kirk Leech. I was interested in the approaches you described by your association to combat the three approaches to combat the animal rights activists. And since you come from the mother country of animal rights activists, I know that I've known Colin Blakemore for many years, who has been exposed to this. I wonder, there's an aspect that we never consider, and that's that most of the animal rights activists' advertising is negative. So they show the poor suffering animal and stop animal research. We rarely use negative advertising, and it has the advantage in having an emotional punch. In light of your experience, can I just run something by you that maybe we could try some negative advertising? So suppose I had a bumper sticker, our way of advertising, that said, help spread Ebola, stop animal research. Do you have any reaction to that from your experience?
It certainly gets some headlines, definitely. There has obviously been a debate in Europe and the UK about kind of, there obviously has been a debate in the UK about kind of similar initiatives. I think for a long period of time, people have kind of pulled back from it. So for example, I mean, in the UK we call it name and shame. So there has been some discussion in the UK, for example, of naming and shaming the transport providers. To say, look, these people are swear word. These people are cowards, these people are antisocial, what are they scared of, kind of thing. I think the danger is that I don't think it would work, actually. I don't think being negative will change the transport company's points of view. I think that to get through the lack of a financial incentive, we have to show them that it's in their brand's interest that they will gain public support for being associated with the benefits of the life sciences. And to do that, I think, if GSK say that or Covan say that, people may think twice about it. But if you can involve patient groups in that, I think you can do that. And we have involved one of the leading UK charities in talking to some of these transport companies, a charity which in the past never mentioned animal models, then began to talk about mice models, and now talks about some of the animal models in its publicity. That's a significant thing. So I don't think as sexy as that Ebola idea is, in a sense, from an advertising point of view, I don't think it'll shift people. I think we need to show that it's in their interest to be associated with these things. A positive message, actually. As I try to talk in my talk, I don't think this is the total answer. But I do think it's something we've never really tried before. It may not work, but I think that it's worth pursuing.
Carl, what's the TAC book? And if you lose my shipment or damage my shipment, how much money can I get back for that?
The TAC book is a tariff, a published tariff book, and it depends. It quite depends on whether you're shipping internationally or you're shipping domestically. But quite honestly, it probably won't cover your $16,000 transgenic miles.
All right, good. Hi, Bruce Kennedy, the Poll Everywhere guy, and also from Cal Poly Pomona, Southern California. I'd like to follow up on Bill's question. When I was an import-export technician at a previous university, I was having to fill out the forms to estimate the value of that gold standard mouse. So this is a question to you, Carl, as well as to our friend at Washington University, Gary Barron. What do I put down for the value of that mouse? $1? What am I going to get back for it? The investigator says, no, it's a very important mouse. It probably costs $10, $20, $60,000 to produce. But when I put it on the form, 12 mice, $12. Baker's dozen, maybe.
I'll take a shot at it. I'm not sure what the most recent rebate would be back to you for a lost item, but it's typically done on weight. And if it's done on weight,
You have to ship some elephants, then I think.
now then we get into the other issue. Then okay, fine, you have extra insurance that you may be able to buy. I'm sure that would be prohibitive. And again, that's based on weight. Or you have to really be able to prove the value of the item that you've lost. And I'm not quite sure how you do that. And we've actually, as an industry, have gone to court and have been very successful in, not having to pay off those claims. Well, my dog sire could have produced X amount of championship dogs at X amount of dollars. It's never happened. And even the use of, for instance, data loggers, when the whole issue of, well, you overheated them or you got them too cold, that has gone to court. There's been very little success there because then there's really no proven science that says, well, how many data loggers did you have? Where did you put them in the container? All of those types of issues, because you will find that temperature will vary in an airplane, potentially in one part of the airplane, almost 20, 30 degrees sometimes. So, not very much based on weight.
I'll let the other Bruce go on that question.
We're taking turns. The Bruces are taking turns. I just have an addendum to one of Carl's comments about when he said the airlines do not approve kennels or boxes. If one of your manufacturers who does your boxes or crates or kennels says they're IATA certified or approved, I would question them on that because IATA does not certify crates. They could say they meet IATA specifications, but IATA is not in the business of doing that. In fact, IATA started to go after manufacturers who claim that, at least in the form of a cease and desist letter when they comes at their attention. So just an addendum to Carl's comments.
My turn again. Good. This one is an education and a training question directed to all of you. And I first want to answer Ford's question about when did I get involved in science. And I can remember in 7th grade having a maze and running rats and mice through it in the 7th grade classroom. And the maze came from my father, who was a psychology teacher. And to that, I think teaching about science in high school is a great effort, but what are we doing at the lower levels, the same as the activists are doing when publications are being distributed in K-6 environments? What will the Common Core standards coming out now in most of the states be doing for influencing science understanding, particularly in the STEM disciplines at that point? At my university, I teach vet techs about lab animal science. And these are mostly young ladies at this point in their 20s who developed an interest with animals when they were 8, 9 years of age, wanted to go to get into veterinary medicine, become a veterinary technician of some kind. So I start teaching them about laboratory animal sciences, and I just find it amazing what they do not understand, despite having an association with animals for many, many years, their formative years, their growing up years. And when I talk to them about animal research, they're very, very much surprised. And after 10 weeks of listening to me in class and having exchanges, they come to appreciate it a whole lot more. So in relating this to the animal transportation discussion of these past 2 days, I can only reiterate one of my questions from the Poll Everywhere survey of yesterday. that the regs apply to both research animals and companion pet animals, and for that, we're all very much interested in the way that our animals get around domestically and internationally. These issues are all of our interests in that way, and that's my statement. And I hope that the educators on the panel, each of you are in one fashion or another, can integrate that into your own presentations in future. Thank you.
So I had 3 questions or comments. Again, I'm taking off my job hat and just acting as if I'm a person that doesn't know much. Okay, first one, a lot of talk about brokers. Yeah. Thank you. My first question is about brokers. Who are these people? Is there a list of brokers? Are they different from the intermediate handlers? I'm a guy that's new to the business, so how do I find a broker?
I can address that. I mean, a good place to start is looking at companies that are registered with the USDA. There are also trade publications in laboratory animal science that will list a lot of these companies that have these services, or at some of the national meetings, like a national ALAS meeting that's coming up. Usually there are several of those companies that provide those type of services that you can talk to.
Okay, thank you. The second thing is, as far as this whole roundtable workshop, is there a sample type checklist? Is there a universal or a model checklist? I'm new to the business, and a lot of good information about having a checklist, but is there a model checklist or somebody's checklist that you will endorse, or is this the kind of thing that ILAR should develop?
That's a very good question. I have not come across a kind of standard type of template. I think it would be a good idea for one of these organizations to at least start a basic template, but also that the individuals and institutions have to understand that they will have to tailor it to their specific situation in the institution. And species.
How about on the European side? Anything?
I absolutely do not know.
Oh, okay. All right. And then last question, and this is my own personal curiosity. So how come we're not looking at railroads for some of our ground transportation? A lot of talk about trucking companies, but no discussion about railroads. I mean, it's open to anybody. It's not just...
Well, the UK is an island, so it won't really help us.
Oh, well, yeah.
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure. I guess my limited understanding is that rail transport is a very, it's not a very smooth ride. And so it would be a much more stressful method of transportation than, say, regular ground transport by truck or vehicle or by air transport. But I don't have any data to verify.
And the only reason why I'm saying that is that when I asked my people, they said, the only thing that we know is moved by railroad are elephants, and that's for the circuses. So I figured if they can handle it, I was just curious why we weren't thinking about it in our community, that's all.
But in many ways, that's much like air transport, where you need a ground transporter to take it to a rail station, and you need a ground transporter to pick it up from a rail station. So it's a lot more complicated. And longer. Yeah.
Okay. So stay at the mic. I'll move up front. Okay.
Carol, just one other comment. We already talked about this to a certain extent off the record, but one of the problems that airlines are having, especially in the cargo area, and our cargo carriage is really down. We are getting beat, especially out of the Pacific Rim countries, by shipping. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, shipping takes now about 4 days to come across. If you're coming across from, for instance, Japan, they can absolutely load up one of the container ships with an immense amount of product. The other issue is one of facilitation. Our shipments airline shipments get slowed down because they have 100% screening. And in terms of shipping, I am sure that the folks at Homeland Security would tell you that they do a risk analysis of what they look at in terms of the shipping product that comes across. So it moves through ports like Los Angeles and Long Beach much quicker sometimes than air. Obviously, that would be a mode that would be conducive to maybe cryogenic shipments, something that was didn't have the live, if you will, label on it, where there was a need for a lot of care. But that's something we're dealing with now with perishables, with other products that we used to carry. So, anyway, just a thought.
Susan, before you ask your question, I want to respond to Bruce a little bit about K-5 or elementary science. I actually think that that's actually too late also, because I think the new research that's coming out of early childhood education, particularly related to science, a man particularly by the name of Dr. Darryl Greenfield at the University of Miami, is producing a lot of data that seems to suggest and assess that students are able to actually experience and learn in a science setting. That is going to trump at least their understanding that math seems to be the big indicator of how students are going to learn by the time they get to be 6th grade. And that's soon to be changing, at least as more data seems to be coming out, that science will in fact supplant math as the indicator for that. So just a...
Well, I have 6 more questions that have come in from online, and they're getting tired too, because the handwriting's slipping, but I'm going to do my best. The guide recommends that during transport, lab rodents are always kept within certain temperature ranges, and movements outside these ranges occur only occasionally. However, we know that when using commercial shipping, these conditions are sometimes violated, and they give the examples of handoffs, loading, and unloading. How is this problem best dealt with? And some of these are coming in response to earlier sessions, so not only this panel, but really any of the speakers that want to address this.
I think the problem you need to realize is they're talking about ambient temperature versus effective ambient temperature. So there can be a very significant difference between the temperature outside the container and what is in the container. ILAR and this guide committee needed to make some general recommendations, and they do have temperature ranges for many of the common laboratory species. But again, in shipping, there's just a lot of different variables to take in place that are not there in the common laboratory animal facility. So, and even there's temperature stratifications within rooms in an animal facility. I don't think most people realize temperature is measured in an animal facility 5 feet off the floor on the thermostat covering that room. So it doesn't mean that you know what it is at the top cage or the bottom cage. So again, just like those, there are those sorts of variations. You need to keep in mind it's the effective ambient temperature inside the box, which we talked about filters and convection and a variety of other things.
Here's another one about temperature. USDA has temperature regulations for transporting covered species between 45 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Are there any temperature regulations for transporting non-covered species, rodents? If so, what are they, and where are they posted? And if not, why not? And I'm going to take that one, and I'll be speaking for the Office of Laboratory Animal Welfare and the NIH. Many of the rodents that are used in the United States are supported by NIH funds, and we require that our PSH-assured institutions operate under the U.S. government principles. And one of those principles specifies appropriate transportation. So that's my answer. Carol referred to the need for an animal care and use protocol under the new dog importation regulations. And they would like you to please expand on this, Carol.
Well, first of all the information on the new importation of dogs is on our website. I will say that I was not part of that whole the whole process, but I will say this, that it's not that it's a new protocol at all. It's just that when we develop our form, and if you are bringing a dog in and you have some reason for not vaccinating that dog, as this new reg is recommending, or as the new reg demands, or you have some need to bring the dog in younger than 6 months, or you have some need to bring the dog in a health status that's not what we're looking for, then there has to be an adequate justification, and that justification has to be an IACUC-approved protocol. So we're not saying that there's a special protocol, but we would have to see the protocol, and there has to be a scientific justification for that.
Carol, can you briefly talk about the USDA consolidating down to regional offices for the endorsement of documents relating to exports from the U.S.? Does that make sense? Let me read that again. Can you briefly talk about the USDA consolidating down to regional offices for the endorsement of documents relating to exports from the U.S.? I understand that in the near future, we will no longer be able to send our documents to the USDA office in our state, but rather to an assigned regional office for endorsement. And this came from Alabama.
And unfortunately, my counterpart, Dr. Egri, is not here, but this is really a question for veterinary services. They handle all of that. VS had undergone a restructuring, and I think that this question is really about that. I would recommend that whoever's asking the question go to the VS website, look at the structuring. If there are any questions, they can call their local office, and then they can get some clarification. But this is for VS.
I have a comment here, and it's a little hard for me to make out the handwriting, but I'm going to do my best. In the U.S., the predicted progressive inability to use air transport may significantly undermine the mission of regional primate centers and promote in-house breeding for all lab species. Consequences are prolonged increase, perhaps, increased risk, perhaps, by land transport, and an increase and wasteful allocation of scarce resources to breed animals in-house. To include necessary euthanasia of unused animals, rodents. Will this working group of experts provide recommendations to resolve the looming crisis? And they put in parentheses high-speed trains. I guess they're suggesting that as a solution. And they want to include increased risk of degrading the quality of animal models by centralized core commercial breeders. So did you get all that, or shall I read through that again?
No, don't read it again.
No or yes?
No, I haven't understood it, I think.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you want to do it?
I mean, there's obviously a kind of a European dimension to this as well, actually. I mean, one of the posited solutions to the UK situation was to effectively breed all the animals in the UK. It just wouldn't really work. I mean, for example, one of the reasons why you have breeding centres in Europe and the animals are imported to the UK is that effectively a commercial organisation or a non-commercial organisation will say we need 400 guinea pigs in 2 weeks, or we need 50 hairless mice, whatever it is. And in a sense, they're kind of delivered on time, like just in time. And having those breeding centres in Europe allows them to move around. If you had those breeding centres in the UK, by necessity, a lot of them would be wasted. You wouldn't be using most of those animals. So effectively, you'd be actually having extra breeding colonies, and most of those animals would be, as you say, euthanized. It makes no sense for research, or makes no sense for the animals, actually. And so it's not a solution. And given the current situation we have at the moment, one of the problems we have in Europe is that you need to export animals for international collaborations, especially mice. And in the UK, we can't do that at the moment. I mean, the Wellcome Trust, for example, as a major funder, they're not going to put 10 mice on a van to go to Manchester Airport to fly them by charter to Berlin or something. It's just unfeasible. So the boycott actually damages that kind of research, actually.
So in summary, Kurt agrees with the questioner that this is a bad trend, and we all do. That's why we're holding this meeting, to discuss this problem. Okay. What suggestion can Carol offer if a company is dealing with two different USA offices on separate coasts with different policies and procedures regarding the endorsement of animal health certificates for international travel? We find inconsistencies between the two. Can you help? This is a supplier that has an office on the East Coast and on the West Coast.
Again, this is a VS issue, and I would recommend that person talk to an officer in the VS. VS did a restructuring. Also, there were some inconsistencies or what have you, and they're working to make sure that everybody is kind of giving the same answer. But then I don't know all the nuances, and there might be a very good reason why the East Coast is saying one thing and the West Coast is saying another. So I would recommend that person to probably contact headquarters in Riverdale and see if they can get to the bottom of the problem.